I'm not comparing.
You literally just said to hear that would be perfect, would be great. You're comparing. You're making it seem like I'm not doing enough.
No,
If you said it, you meant it. It wasn't a joke.
I don't hear no positive stuff from me.
You say you don't hear enough positive, and this is the place.
Hey guys, welcome to Little Blackbird Night 1, part 2 of our breakdown of KB and Edmund's argument. I'll probably do a part 3 on this, and hopefully it should be helping you guys navigate your relationships in terms of how to deal with very hard conversations and arguments as well. It's something that we deal with clients in relationship coaching that I do, and we talk to them about these kind of stuff. KB was arguing with Edmund from the past, not the present. KB's beef with Edmund, whilst in some regard actually very valid, was actually coming from the very much the past. If you didn't see the clip, go watch the very beginning of this clip. Her statement was that you're making it seem as if I'm not doing enough. And yet we saw with Nick how he challenged it quickly. He was like, yo, no. He didn't mean anything by the comment. And we can see obviously as well that he didn't necessarily mean anything by that comment in that regard, although she was right, because he also felt that way. And I always tell my avoidant people in my class as well, in my teaching and my coaching one-to-one, that actually 9 times out of 10, the avoidant is not lying. They're right. How they feel is probably actually right. They're viewing it very correctly. What's making you wrong is how you're addressing it. Okay. All right. And most times avoidance, fearful avoidance and dismissive, and I'll explain what those people are. They oftentimes are very perceptive. And anxious people, they're very perceptive. The insecure attachment makes people hyper vigilant to vibrations and patterns that exist with people in the atmosphere. They study people, right? They have to, because they want to feel safe. So when she said, obviously, you're making it feel like it's like I'm not enough, there is some aspect of truth because of what he said. He had some backing behind it, which was, you don't say anything nice to me, right? And he, you know, and that's what was said. But did he mean that? Probably not. But it doesn't matter, because she was quote unquote right about what she felt was the motivation behind it. But the argument actually kicks off because she feels, and I think this is where it's important, and I tell my clients this all the time, you need to own how you feel, right? When we start saying, you made me feel, you are now abdicating responsibility and accountability of your feelings onto the other party. And I know it's hard to hear, because you're probably telling yourself, no, they did make me feel. And you're right. In some aspect, they did. But we're trying to make sure that we have ownership and we are empowered, because what you don't want to be is a victim to somebody saying something, doing something, and making you feel like that. No, I do feel like that when you do X, Y, and Z. I'm owning the fact that I feel that way, and it's on me, but it's still hurtful what you did as an action. Right. So in this instance, when he makes a comment and she says, you know, you're making it seem as if I'm not good enough, she doesn't realize she's projected. How do you know that's what he meant? How do you know? How does you know what I mean? The only way to think that you know that correctly is that you are mind reading them. But since we know nobody can mind read, what does that mean? It means really and truly, you are thinking from your head and putting it into their brain. Because how would you know what they're thinking? You don't. You don't know who's thinking? Your own. So therefore, who's making who feel like you're not doing enough? You are feeling that. And that's why you've got to own your feelings, because you have no clue what they were thinking in their brain. You only know what you're thinking. But many of you have come from places where you have an insecure attachment. You've been through some trauma. And what you don't recognize is that a lot of times you've sought to understand how people feel and move and behave, and you are almost a mind reader. And so what ends up happening is you learn people's patterns, and that keeps you safe, because you think almost, it's quote unquote almost like mind reading. And so you think that's normal, and it's not. People who are secure think about their own feelings, and they exist in that plane. They don't think about other people's feelings to project it as their own, or to try and anticipate what their feelings are. No. They think about their own. And that's very difficult for people who have an insecure attachment, because, again, that seems very selfish, and also doesn't seem very safe, because your childhood where you grew up in didn't have the opportunity to really be able to have your emotional needs met. We know both their childhoods are coming from his, a foster care system, and hers, a fatherless home, right, where she could not rest. If she could not rest, then she was not able to sit and process and allow herself to feel, because feelings don't pay bills. And the same for him, he could not exist in the plane of his feelings because he would have to be moving around in different foster cares. He has to protect himself. They ain't got time to feel, because this can actually be a life or death situation too. So you got two people who feelings are not allowed, emotional needs are not allowed. And so therefore, what they learn is that to be passive aggressive. Okay. So let me just explain when I say about avoidance, what that actually means. There's a thing called attachment styles, and this was John Bowlby, a British psychologist who was looking at young children with their caregivers, and what he recognized was there were 4 categories, or at least 3 at the time when he did it, of categories that people would fall into: secure, anxious, and avoidant. The avoidant children grew up in households where there was emotional neglect, and the parents birthed hyper independence in those children by letting them problem solve way too early. Okay, maybe you were a third parent or second parent. Maybe you were paying bills early. Maybe you were having to be an emotional thermometer for your parents. Maybe you had to write your own letters, sign your own letters, get money to buy your own uniform, whatever you need. There was something where you were playing an adult role before your time. Okay, way too much freedom. And then there's children who grew up in very anxious homes. They grow up with parents who are very controlling. The parents can be very conditional in their love. Like, I love you when you do this. I love you when you go to school. I love you when you get good grades. I only love you when you're excelling. I only love you when you're winning. I only love you when you're doing what I want you to. And so at that point, a child learns that love is conditional, and therefore abandonment is their biggest fear. Whereas avoidant, their biggest fear is rejection. Now, there was another woman that came along, Mary Ainsworth. She came along and she deciphered that there was a 4th bracket, which is what we call the dysfunctional or disorganized or fearful avoidant. And children who grew up in those households, which are like Edmund, grew up in households where they're consistently moving around, feel physically unsafe. And then they have parents that are abusive or emotionally abusive, physically and mentally abusive, or parents that just have such anger problems that the child doesn't know whether to come or go, and they're not safe in the household because they're not sure what parent turns up today. They learn hypervigilance. So what does that mean? I've got KB, who I think is playing a more dismissive role, and we've got Edmund playing a more fearful, avoidant role. We know that if you listen to her interview, she spoke about how the reason why she wanted to get with Edmund is because he listened well. He spent time and tried to understand her. Okay, and that speaks to her inner wound. How does that play a role in this argument? Well, let's play a little bit of a clip, and I'll tell you how.
Bring that shit up at?
I can just not.
Give me another problem now. If this is a place for you to tell me that kind of shit. We live together. You ain't tell me nothing like that.
So here's her biggest problem. Her biggest problem was that he didn't tell her nothing at the home, but now he's saying about how it's literally perfect. Now, I don't know how she extracted all that information from that comment that he made about it's perfect, but she did. Either way. And she was kind of right. So again, I want to make it very clear. So now she's pushing to get answers in the wrong time and season. This is what I mean by avoidance, tending to choose the wrong timing. Why are they choosing the wrong timing? Because they're hurt and they often don't actually they don't often tell what's actually wrong with them. That's on both sides. So because you don't always tell people how she's hurt, things build up and it reaches a brim and then you explode. An explosion doesn't necessarily mean you're going to start kicking, punching, and breaking walls, but sometimes you then are impulse control lacking because you have to choose a time and a season like this, which didn't need it. Okay. And so for her, the past is actually playing a point in the present. Okay. The Bible says, be slow to anger, be slow to speak. Okay. All right. Be slow to speak, but quick to listen. Okay. This argument happened because she felt like she was not being given the credit and saying that, I'm not doing enough. And that was her own insecurity that then led her into that place. And many of you have your own insecurities and then you project it onto your partner. You say, I don't feel like I'm doing that. I don't feel I'm great. I don't think I'm amazing. I don't think I'm this. I don't think I'm that. And really and truly, you're projecting it onto your partner saying, your partner's, you don't make me feel amazing. You don't make me, and really and truly, it's actually about you. You don't feel those feelings naturally. And you have pushed the burden of those feelings that you want to feel onto your partner rather than addressing them yourself. A lot of conflict happens because people don't address the past pains that's happened to them. People haven't worked out and resolved the past pain that they have. We fight to be seen. We fight to be heard. We fight to be understood. And then we fight in those ways because we didn't receive those things as a child. So we said to ourselves as adults, when I become one, I will fight for those things, right? But sometimes the way we fight ends up being wrong. So again, watch a little bit more of the clip, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about how
do this here.
You brought it up.
I know, but I don't want to do this here.
You have no answer for me? You brought that here.
Now, as you can see, she's saying you brought that here. She's trying to put it onto him and say that, you know, he's the reason why we're having this conversation. I mean, it's on her. But again, the past is playing up a role here, right? She's got the bit between her teeth, and now she's going at it. And this is not going to be helpful. But the reason why she's doing it is because she feels hurt, but hasn't expressed the pain of the hurt. She has every right to feel this way, by the way, right? Her gripe against him is valid, right? And how she feels is totally true. But at this, she's pushing now because she wants to almost prove a point rather than be understood. She's sensitive. She's a sensitive gangster. You know, she's been strong for everybody else. And what she was looking for was a little bit of that strength from Edmund to protect her as well. She may feel like she is, you know, she wanted him to honor her in all aspects when they're public. And she resolved to find herself perspectively looking at it as he's not respecting her. Okay? And so this is for you. Before you get into an argument with your man or your woman, okay, you need to process. This is really important. Processing how you feel is what will save you having so much trouble. So how do we process? First and foremost, sit still. Number two, begin to replay what you're feeling in your mind or first, and then as a way of doing things. But the most important part of that is also to write it out or speak it out, so that it comes out from your mind, which feels more claustrophobic and probably going to cause you to react. If you write it out, you're expressing yourself, you're freeing yourself, and you're relieving the pressure within you, right? And then begin to ask yourself some key questions. Why am I feeling the way I am feeling right now? What am I feeling right now? What are the emotions? What are some of the thoughts that come into my mind? Starting to really address those particular aspects. Okay, all right? So again, sit still, think about it, write it out or verbally communicate it, and then look to really be able to acknowledge what the emotions, what the feelings you have, and then let it pass. And then you can go and address it with your partner. All right. And when you do go to repeat it to your partner, you want to stress on the fact that you're trying to have understanding and bring yourselves back together again, rather than just having a tirade or a cussing match. Okay. Okay, so this is really key once more again. We're working out how we feel before we go into battle once more again. We're working out how we have emotions before, as in we, as in you are working out. You, okay? And so, yeah, the past has actually affected the future here, the present, because it's been unresolved. But now, of course, we're fast forwarding it, and she is, you know, letting him know, but really and truly it's because she never was seen in that way. She never was heard in that way. She was unprotected in that same way. And that probably was a trigger as to why she did what she did. The lack of protection that she felt in that moment, and the heavy criticism. Because one thing avoidance going to do is be frustrated about somebody criticizing them. Why? They are very sensitive. And one of them I know, we're very sensitive. We feel like if people want to deliver a message, there's a way to deliver it. And then we find it very difficult to issue people goodwill. And as you heard from her, no, you said it then. You said it. Like, she didn't want to issue goodwill because that would mean that maybe you're getting off the hook. And also because the fear of any dismissive avoidant or in that space is going to be rejection. And so I have to reject you before you reject me. I have to jump in there quickly and do it before you do me. And that sometimes can be very difficult, right? And that can lead to, unfortunately, the wrong kind of results that we want in a relationship as well. But listen, my time is up. I want to conclude on this by saying that time and season is important. But number two, we also must understand what is playing up at the moment. What past memory, what past event, what past scenario is affecting you presently that's making you react in the way that you did? Is it a wound emotionally? Is it a hurt emotionally? What is it that is making you feel that way before you jump into an argument with that person? That's what KB needs to do. She needs to analyze that. She gets on projecting onto him and be more self-aware. But we all could do some work in that space. But listen, make sure you do me a massive favor. You like it, you share, you subscribe, you click on that wonderful bell button for the notifications of the uploads. Don't forget, hype this video up, hype me up, okay, to let other people know how great this video actually is as well. But listen, my time is up. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and we'll click on that wonderful bell button. And we'll see you again very, very soon. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. There's not much I wouldn't do. So be careful out here in the streets.
Little black book. You know what time it is.